Hello and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, again for the second time today after the transfer talk show. I did say the shows were going to come thick and fast, but this is the one you've all been waiting for, our Talking Tactics special, reflecting on our 4-0 demolition of Everton. And I've got the man himself, the best football analyst anywhere on the planet. Gareth, how are you doing, mate?
Very kind. Yeah, I'm very well, thanks, mate.
Good man, good man, and obviously a lot better for a much needed victory on Sunday.
Yeah, dominant, wasn't it? Really, I think we've spoke about it before that you go into games sort of more confident than you do some others, and I think most of us were fairly confident given how Everton are and where they are at the minute, and think, yeah, it was a confident win, wasn't it? And it was amazing, really. Nice, back to our best.
Yeah, I mean, we were helped by. I think we scored at key times, which we'll get into, and it shows how much goals change games, similar to what we faced against Newcastle the other week. But I was really surprised at the lack of drive from Everton, even after you know 20, 22, 23 minutes when we scored the second goal. I mean, like, at least Villa gave it a go into the second half against Newcastle, but I felt like Everton just pretty much gave up as soon as it went to 2-0.
Yeah, they did. Their edges dropped, didn't they? It was quite surprising, really. You expect it from a Sean Dyche team to sort of really kick on a little bit, but there's a lot of dead wood at Everton. I think that needs a massive overhaul needed there, and it's a bit of a mess for them, isn't it, really?
Yeah, 100%, mate, 100%. Well, we're going to go through it. We've got our usual slides. We've also got a new shiny slide for you all to have a look at. And Gareth has done his wonderful analysis of picking up certain points from the game that we'll go through. But before we do any of that, as always, we like to promote our channel. So we're on the road to 3K. So you guys have given us some wonderful support. We're well over 2,300 subscribers. So please hit that like button. Continue to do so. Keep spreading the word of the channel, and do hit that subscribe button if you are new. Last week's episode got over 5,000 views, which is just incredible, really. So please, guys, thank you so much for your support. But just keep supporting us, and Gareth we'll keep producing shows like this, which is fantastic for us. So yeah, let's get into it. So player sort of passing combinations, like player influence as well a little bit. What are we finding here? I guess it was kind of back to normal, service resumed, I would say.
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. We spoke last week about sort of the triangle of players out on the left and the right sides, and we've seen that a lot better this time. We've seen Kamara coming out to support Cash and Konsa a little bit more, and likewise with Louise, Didinho, and Powell. And it was excellent to see, really. There was a lot of sort of passing. I think they really sort of did focus on having Powell Torres in the side. I think that was a real focal point, and that is what he does bring to the side. And I think he was at quite, pretty much his passing best, as we say. But interesting as well to see Leon Bailey involved a lot more.
Yeah, and like, I know we're going to go on to his kind of influence in the game, but just quickly before that, I was mentioning to Kev, he's such a confidence player, isn't he? Because I think it was within the first 15, 20 seconds that he picked the ball up and he beats two men, and he gives it to a Villa player, and then we get an attack out of it. That just sets him up for the rest of the game. Whereas if Ashley would have maybe smashed him and put a tackle in, it would have been a different Leon Bailey.
Yes, exactly that, and it confidence plays one of those sort of players, and I think you're dead right. I think if Ashley Young would have whacked him, sort of going in, I think, and that was the idea why they put Young on that side. They thought that he will know Leon Bailey, he is a threat, and that's the way it's going to be. But yeah, he was at it from the off, wasn't he? And it was sort of, he's such a Marmite player. You either love him or you can't really stand him. And that your opinion on that changes from week to week. So you can't decide whether you like him or whether you don't. I always did like him, but I just wanted him to put in that bit more of an effort. And I think when he puts that effort in, is he though just starting to realise that effort is everything in the Premier League? You've got to put it in to get anything out of it. We shall see moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. But looking at him from Sunday, obviously this is a new slide in terms of X threat contribution, and I guess you wanted to see whether the proof was in the pudding, and it on Leon Bailey, and it looks like it was completely.
Yeah, slight error for me on the goals prevented on the axis there. I haven't changed the label for my previous graph, but ignore that. It's about expected threat, and we can see there that Leon Bailey was just he was. This is all just through passing. So those little passes inside into the final third and everything else, creating a lot sort of thing just with his passing alone. So it was really good to see, and Cash as well involved as well.
Yeah, that right hand side was really effective for Villa. And even the left hand side, I thought Luca Dean had a good game as well. But it was evident to see that kind of relationship with Cash and Bailey, and then also Musa Diaby. Once he kind of got on his toes a little bit after the sort of the first 15 minutes, him and Bailey linked up really well for at least I'd say 50-60 minutes before Bailey went off.
Yeah, he was really good, wasn't he? Diop? And I think Luca Digne deserves a lot of credit. We've seen him even against Newcastle. He didn't have a bad game as such, and I think to let him go, I think is a bit daft, at this point in the season because Mourinho, how fit is he? How quickly is he going to come back in? I thought Digne played really well. I must admit, the other day, sorry. Yeah, and you're kind of not sure, are you?
It's almost like a better the devil you know situation, isn't it? Like this Marcos Acuna could be a really good player. I'm hearing that he might have a slight injury, so that might change our mind. We're also interested as a backup option, Tavares, who plays for Arsenal, obviously was on loan last season at Marseille. But I don't know, maybe they've got slightly different qualities. Obviously, there's the rumours of Dini's wages being a potential issue, but yeah, I think he's never been really spectacular, but he's still a good, solid player, isn't he? That's the
But
thing.
you see, you've summed it up, haven't you? You've just said exactly pretty much what you're not quite sure. You think to yourself, yeah, he's a great addition to the squad. Is he good enough to play every week? Probably not if Mourinho is in the fit. But he's been a more than happy replacement. Who else
Mm,
could we can't really argue with his performances, and I think he's done his bit.
yeah. Well, he certainly showed on Sunday, and a lot of crosses coming into the box, a lot of really good balls in. Always an option for Torres down that left hand side, even though he didn't get it all the time. And as I say, that kind of balance between having a threat on the right and the left really affected Everton, and we just pulled them all over the place because then that opened up space for Diaby and McGinn in the middle.
Yeah, because we saw sort of a lot of fullbacks, both fullbacks quite high, didn't we? Sort of really quite instead of just a three this time. So we knew that we could pin Everton back. Everton usually playing a 4-5-1, that sort of thing, with two eights going forward, and they changed it a little bit into a 4-4-2 out of position, but similar sort of thing. And we played to our strengths, but we managed to press them back as well.
Yeah, it was good to see, and obviously created some really good shots, really good chances. Sorry, XG high, and Everton after having a pretty good XG apparently against Fulham, we limited them really well in terms of they've hardly had any chances really.
No, exactly that. I mean, the pen's included in this. We should say that, I think, and it's one of them sort of things, isn't it? That we one week we're not so good at Newcastle, the next week at home and we're scoring 3.2 xg and exceeding that by scoring the 4 goals, 13 shots. What's not to like? So as long as we just got to keep improving on that.
Yeah. A few people have maybe criticised Ollie Watkins a little bit for maybe missing a couple of chances or not being quite at the races. I mean, have you? I guess no one would be more disappointed than Ollie Watkins when you score 4 goals against a team at home. You're thinking, right, I should have been on the score sheet. But can we level any sort of criticism at Watkins for Sunday's
No,
game?
no, I think it's unfair. I think you could tell by his face when he came off, couldn't you? He was unhappy with it. He knew that he hadn't performed to his best, and everyone has their off days. And unfortunately, this one was one for him. But was it the game where he should have really scored a couple of goals? Yes, he probably should. But this is an off day. It happened.
Yeah, and it rubs salt into the wound that like he goes off and literally the player who replaced him within 20 seconds scores a goal, and great for John Duran to get his first goal for the club and at Villa Park as well.
Yeah, big shout for him. I was doing a lot of reading on John Duran, sort of early career, sort of last couple of days, and it seems sort of like he's always been this prodigy, playing above his years, and played in the under-20 World Cup at 17 and so forth down the years. And he's going to be a big player for us, I think. I've got a funny thing, you know, I'd stick him straight in against Hibernian. I really think a confidence booster. He's got one already. He looks full of it. You know, he looks confident.
Yeah.
He's quite a stocky lad for his age, you know. And yeah, I think he's going to be. You got to get him in there.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. Vote of confidence from you, Gareth.
Yeah,
Quick look at the timeline. Dominant performance. Nothing more really to say.
yeah. The 7-6 from Louise is obviously the pen, as I've mentioned,
Yeah,
but again, we can see a better. This is almost the opposite to what we performed against Newcastle.
yeah,
Newcastle's timeline was almost like our one here, so it
yeah,
was really interesting to see that. I mean, you know, it's sort of like I say, the 7-6 is the pen, but yeah, it was really good to see sort of like constant sort of increments of XG, sort of decent shots coming in.
yeah. Like a fully dominant performance that we showed. So yeah, you wanted to highlight a couple of things. Nothing too much today, because like you say, it was a fully dominant performance. So it's difficult to highlight too much. But yeah, in terms of our kind of shape, our initial build-up shape, what are you kind of noticing here from how we'd set up?
Yeah, as you say, we didn't want to over-egg it today. A 4-0 win's a 4-0 win. Everybody saw it. It was dominant, you know, no worries. And what's sort of more important is we did not see the high line this week. I don't know if anybody has ever sort of picked up on that, but we didn't see
Yeah,
that
I
this
know. I
week.
did notice that a little bit. Yes.
So,
Um,
you know,
yeah, and we
it's
would seem
opposition
solid as
dependent.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it was because you've got that flexibility to drop off. I mean, Everton haven't got much pace up front anyway. When Danjuma come on, it was a little bit different. I think there's no need to play a high line when you've just got Calvert-Lewin, I guess. But even so, it wasn't evident in any shape or form, really. So, but yeah,
Mm.
moving on to the shape, it was just sort of, we saw that 4-2-2-2 again, didn't we? We saw sort of Louise and Kamara and Diaby and McGinn coming in and Watkins. So Bailey's just off of the picture here, obviously. But yeah, it was just sort of really sort of similar, familiar shape that we've seen, and sort of back to where we were sort of at the end of last season when Emery came in, really.
Yeah, and quick look on a quick mention on McGinn and Diaby. I mean, McGinn had a great game, but looking at them taking those positions there in between the midfield and the defence, and those are the positions you want them to get into, because they're just so hard to pick up, aren't they? Does a midfielder drop off? Does a defender go and press? And that's what causes that uncertainty.
Yeah, exactly that. And we spoke last week against Newcastle about McGinn being ineffective out wide, you know, and when he's in these sort of positions, he is one of those sort of players that can play on the half turn. He can receive the ball really well on the half turn. When you've got players like Torres, like Luis at Kamara, that can feed him into that, you know, he is that sort of player because he gives and goes. If you notice, a lot of McGinn's movement is step one way, retrieve, and then he sort of stands there and he collects the ball. He's really good at sort of making those little angles for himself, and that was sort of really interesting to me. There's a little bit of a change in his game against Everton, I thought.
Yeah. No, he was excellent. He seemed to have real determination to put a real performance in. Secondly, you want and something that we utilize well, and you touched on it before, is the width, and obviously, yeah, creating that space wide and then ultimately through the middle for people to dribble the ball.
Yeah, and this is where we don't see that back three anymore. Like in this, it was more sort of a case of sort of fire. I think I've highlighted Diaby there, but it's actually Cash up on that right hand side. So it's more of that sort of four shape, sort of a rounded shape, which is really effective for us. And then we can get players into central areas to be able to play those balls out wide.
Yeah, no, it was evident seeing that. I like Dina a little bit higher up, and especially against these type of teams who are going to maybe sit in or are going to try and stay in the game at 1-0 or 2-0. You've got to kind of take a few risks, and if we've got players who can run with the ball, as well as like pick players in positions like Dina or Diaby or Bailey, in those wide areas, you're going to cause problems for teams like that. They're going to have to make decisions about where they go and press the ball.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see, like I say, that you know, you've got a fairly narrow, but Everton back four there. They're not concerned for some reason by Dina and Cash out in those areas, but they're sort of, I found Everton sort of very almost, a lot of their players like you can see here, they're always drawn to the ball, you know, sort of,
Mm,
but not just one or two players. They sort of, the shape sort of just goes off of them, and they then space is left out in different areas of the pitch. And it was quite easy. We can see McGinn and Diaby have simply stepped up 10 or 15 yards into those sort of 2-8 positions there. And there's two options to receive the ball, plus the ones that can go out wide. So Yeah, a lot of it we were good, but Everton were just played straight into our hands.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the last couple of slides you wanted to look at, and something that was evident as well, was the change in tactic of corners. And we spoke, I think, last week about kind of Everton having height in the box, and maybe that being a threat for them if they were to, to get a lot of set pieces. That didn't happen, but we changed our tactic with our attacking corners to play more short and more inventive corners to negate the height that Everton had.
Yeah, I mean, it was highlighted in commentary when it on the game, and sort of
Mm,
there was no sort of direct ball straight into the box. It was always a short corner, and this one, excuse me, straight out to Louise, who's just going to, in the next slide as well, he's just going to clip that ball over the top there. So you sort of two phases of the corner, which is really interesting because, as you said, for the reasons you've outlined, we know that they had height in the box, and I didn't think we were ever going to we didn't look to really get anything from a set piece. It didn't really look that sort of game, did it? It was more sort of, we were
no.
sort of succeeding in open play, but McGinn has just clipped that ball over there. And this was one of the sort of chances that Watkins sort of nearly sort of had, but just couldn't quite get on the end of it. But yeah, it was an interesting ploy.
Yeah, and am I right in saying that Watkins, the penalty that Watkins got, I think Bailey headed it down, but was that from a corner or was that a free kick area? I can't
I
remember. I
can't
don't know if
remember.
it was like a clearance and then we put it back in. But yeah, obviously anything that can draw out some of their players is I suppose is good. And yeah, it shows a little bit of inventiveness. I mean, Austin McPhee's got to earn his money somewhere along the line, hasn't he? But
Yeah,
we haven't yet scored from him. That's the only thing.
yeah, I mean, ultimately, the ball's always going to go in the box in some phase. So you, with a tall team, they're going to stay in there until they can manage to clear it. So I think it was more sort of hope than expectation, really. But it was something different.
Yeah, absolutely. And why not when you're kind of comfortably winning the game to try things? And I guess the second half we touched on Durant scoring, Leon Bailey getting his goal as well, which was great. It's a little bit of a shame for Philip Coutinho getting an injury. It's looking like he's maybe 3 weeks on the sideline, so not as serious as we thought. But yeah, he just seemed to be kind of showing a few tricks and showing his usefulness. And yeah, are we gonna ultimately always gonna be frustrated because Coutinho?
Yeah, he looked devastated, didn't he? You know, he really did. Sort of, you could sort of sense with a player that he was starting to come into a little bit, starting to feel a little bit more himself, maybe. But it was such a shame. I was gutted for him, really, because he just started to show these little glimpses, didn't he, when he was coming on and sort of things like that. But there was obviously some things that weren't right because I noticed sort of when Emery sort of shook hands with him, he walked down the tunnel with quite a stern face. Normally, he sort of
Mm.
waves a little bit to the supporters and everything else, but he was a little bit stern on a few things. So whether it was disappointment at injuries or something was not quite right, I don't know. But yeah, just
Yeah,
something I noticed.
yeah, I agree. His post match interview was a little bit interesting because he still
Yeah,
said there was stuff that wasn't good with the performance. And obviously we know the standards that he drives, but yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because we didn't have to get out of maybe second or third gear to win that game. And I said to Kev, we probably didn't learn as much from that Everton game, or Emery probably didn't as much as what he would have learned from the Newcastle game in terms of like character and team shape and stuff. Because like I say, Everton kind of just rolled over. So it's going
yeah.
to be interesting with the games coming up now. Hibs, in a real competitive game, they're going to be up for it. Obviously, we're favourites to win, and then Burnley away on Sunday, another game that in theory, we should be looking to win. So he's not going to be expecting a drop in standards.
No, he's not. I'm not. I just couldn't quite put my finger on. I was looking at a lot of stuff afterwards, thinking, what was it? Maybe that he wasn't quite sure about. Maybe it was Matty Cash, but then he did contribute to some sort of passing and sort of final third part. I don't know whether it was the first phase of the build up, but that looked okay with our passing network and everything else that we saw. So I don't know. Maybe it was Ollie Watkins not sort of doing what he was supposed to be doing, but I don't know. But yeah, Burnley is another game that we should be doing sort of quite well in. But looking forward to the Hibs game, I think that should be a bit of a test for us because they'll want to smash us. I think a little bit, smash
Yeah,
us across the park a bit. So it'd be interesting to see. And with Zaniolo opening sort of maybe to make a debut, we shall see. It'd be interesting how the shape changes, if at all.
exactly, exactly. Well, look, Gareth, thanks very much for your time again and your wonderful analysis. where can everyone find you on Twitter? This seems to be your main the main port of call.
Yeah, find me at that karate, JC.
Perfect. So we'll be back possibly with a reaction to a talking tactics from the Hibs game, dependent on score and game, but certainly after the Burnley game, hopefully we'll get double victories on the board. That'll be amazing. As like I say, thank you so much, Gareth. Thank you all for watching. Do please hit that like button and do please hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 3K, so you guys can really help us to get there as quickly as possible, and we can do even more shows like this. Thank you as again for everyone watching, and as always, remember, we all follow the Villa. Thanks, everyone.